Have you ever stopped to think that perhaps everything you call reality is nothing more than a limited version of something much greater, something hidden behind what your eyes can see and what your mind was trained to believe? For thousands of years, the sages who laid the foundations of Western spirituality spoke of this. Hermes Trismegistus, considered the father of hidden wisdom, left behind a set of teachings that very few have ever dared to fully decipher. Among them lies a law that not only explains how the universe is organized, but that also offers a secret key, the possibility of bending reality. But this is not a law you will find in science manuals or in common spirituality courses. It was protected, veiled, wrapped in symbols and metaphors, so that only those with the true desire to expand consciousness could access it. We are not speaking of superstition, nor of blind beliefs. We are speaking of a spiritual technology so powerful that modern science itself, especially quantum physics and neuroscience, has begun to validate it with experiments that seem to defy common sense. If you've made it this far, know this: nothing is coincidence. You are part of the small percentage of humanity that seeks to understand what lies beyond the obvious. Only about 20% of people, according to studies on consciousness, manage to live awake, aware of their choices, and capable of manifesting the life they desire. The other 80% remain trapped in automatic patterns, living in a reality they never chose but simply accepted. This video is not for the 80%. It is for you, because you already feel there is something more, something hidden, something waiting to be revealed. And that is why, before we go further, I need to ask you one thing. Subscribe to this channel right now, not to inflate numbers, but because what you are about to hear is rare, exclusive, and you will need to revisit it. Listen again, absorb it in layers, share it too. Because knowledge only becomes true when it begins to transform not only your life, but the world around you. Hermes said, "As above, so below, as within, so without." But what does this truly mean in practice? We all want direct answers, but the real key lies in the spaces between words, in the silence that forms just before understanding. The universe does not respond to shallow commands, it responds to frequencies. And it is here, right at this threshold, that the mystery of the hidden law begins. Reality is not solid. It is fluid, malleable, and your consciousness is the chisel that carves the life you live. But from here on, we are entering territory few dare to explore. How to truly align your energy to become a conscious co-creator. It is not about just thinking positive, nor about repeating empty affirmations. It is something far deeper, a kind of hidden code that governs both the atom and the human mind. And before revealing this structure, you must realize something essential. You are already using this law, even if unconsciously. The repeated coincidences in your life, the times you thought of someone and they immediately called, the moments when an inexplicable intuition helped you avoid a problem. These are not accidents. They are this law manifesting in your life in raw, unshaped form. The difference between those who live trapped in chance and those who mold reality is just one thing: awareness. Now imagine, for just a moment, if that awareness were directed, if you could understand the inner mechanisms that connect your thought to external events. That is exactly what Hermes described, and exactly what modern science now begins to call the collapse of the wave function, neural coherence, and field resonance. But let's not rush. Before diving into the how, we need to understand the why. Why was this knowledge hidden from humanity? Why was it reserved for only a few masters? The answer is simple. Because knowledge is power, and power without awareness can destroy just as easily as it creates. Have you noticed that every era of humanity seems to carry a subtle form of censorship over the most transformative knowledge? In ancient times, it was the domain of mystery schools. In the medieval period, it was the silence imposed by religion. Today, the veil remains, but in a different way. Constant distraction, the excess of information that blinds us to the essential. And the essential is precisely what Hermes whispered thousands of years ago, and that still echoes today. Reality is not fixed. It responds to you. But this response doesn't happen in a linear way, like pressing a button and seeing a light turn on. It is a vibrational process, invisible, silent, yet absolutely real. Think of the most intriguing experiments of modern physics. The famous double-slit experiment, where particles behave differently simply because they are observed. Doesn't this prove that consciousness alters matter? Greg Braden and Joe Dispenza argue that the human energy field works like a transmitter, and Carl Jung already claimed that inner symbols shape external destiny. Science and spirituality finally seem to converge on what Hermes always knew. The mind is not inside reality. Reality organizes itself inside the mind. But here lies the trap that ensnares most people. Trying to understand this law only rationally, it's impossible. It's like trying to measure the wind with a ruler. Reason is necessary, but not sufficient. And this is precisely why most people try to apply spiritual principles and fail, because they do so with the same fragmented mindset they use in daily life. To pierce this veil, you need something more. You need a conscious practice that unites body, mind, and energetic field into the same alignment. And here I want to propose something new, something we will build as a community. We will call this the formula of triple alignment. It is not about breathing or visualization or emotion in isolation, but about three keys that, when activated together, create coherence powerful enough to bend reality. The first key is what we will call the harmonic pulse, the inner rhythm that connects your vital energy to the greater field. It is not merely breathing, but the ability to feel the invisible beat of the universe within your own body. The second key is the seed image, not merely imagining but planting in the quantum field a living representation of what you desire, as if it were a seed cast into the invisible soil of reality. And the third key is the unison state, the moment when thought, emotion, and action stop being in conflict and vibrate in perfect symphony. These three keys form the formula of triple alignment, and only those who consciously practice this triple alignment can activate Hermes's hidden law at its fullest power. Now think with me. How many times have you tried to change something in your life and nothing seemed to happen? Maybe you even practiced affirmations, meditations, visualization exercises, but something always felt blocked. That's precisely because without this complete formula, everything remains fragmented. The field responds, but it responds diffusely, incompletely. What we will explore from here on is how each of these keys can be activated, and more importantly, how to unite them into a single flow. But pay attention. Don't expect this to be simple. The simple belongs in cheap manuals and disposable motivational quotes. What you are about to access is the code that connects the invisible to the tangible, the eternal to the temporary. And remember, only 20% of humanity is awake to this. By hearing these words, you already place yourself among those who have chosen awareness. But choice is only the beginning. The next step is practice, repetition, and the courage to cross into the unknown. Have you ever noticed how certain moments seem suspended in time? Those instants when everything appears to align perfectly, a coincidence, a decision that arises at just the right moment, an encounter that changes the course of your life. These moments are not random. They are signs that you have touched, even for a second, the field of total coherence. This is precisely the state that the formula of triple alignment seeks to activate. Let us look deeper into its keys. The harmonic pulse is not a breathing technique in the ordinary sense. It is more than inhaling and exhaling. It is learning to hear the silent symphony vibrating behind all things and attuning your body to it. Scientists at the HeartMath Institute have already proven that the heart possesses an electromagnetic field thousands of times stronger than the brain's are. And when this field enters a state of coherence, perception of reality shifts. Hermes once said, "The heart is the throne of the subtle mind." The harmonic pulse is this hidden rhythm, and learning to feel it is like turning the key that opens the first door. Then comes the seed image. Unlike common visualization, which often remains in the realm of fantasy, the seed image is not merely imagined but felt as something already pulsing within the field. Joe Dispenza calls this the memory of the future, but we can understand it as the quantum seed that germinates when you stop desiring and begin to assume its existence as inevitable. It is not about seeing with the mind's eye, but about planting in the invisible space an energetic imprint that the field recognizes as real. And then we arrive at the unison state. Here there is no room for doubt or inner division. It is the moment when mind, emotion, and action vibrate in the same direction, like an orchestra tuning before playing. Jung spoke of the process of individuation, the alignment between conscious and unconscious. Physics speaks of quantum coherence, when different particles oscillate as if they were one. In the unison state, you do not merely desire something, you become the frequency of that something. And it is at this point that reality does not resist. It bends, but something must be said clearly. The path is not free of mistakes, and the greatest mistake is believing that practicing for a day or two will make the entire universe change instantly. Hermes' law is not a magic wand. It is a living structure that responds to consistency. What separates initiates from the curious is perseverance. Think, how many people have abandoned their own dreams because they did not see quick results? How many gave up before crossing the true threshold? This is why only a minority awakens. The masses remain trapped, while the few who persist learn to move between realities as if walking through invisible doors. And here is something you must keep in mind. When you begin to apply the formula of triple alignment, reality will test your determination. Unexpected situations may arise, people may drift away, old patterns may try to return. Do not interpret this as failure, but as proof that the field is reorganizing. It is the echo of the old making way for the new. That is why this is not just knowledge for you to hear and forget. It is a calling to practice, to observe, to repeat until alignment ceases to be an effort and becomes your natural state of existence. And when that happens, you do not merely manifest, you awaken. Now that you have glimpsed how the formula of triple alignment can open invisible doors, we must speak of something even more important: how to integrate this law into your life in a real, practical, and everyday way. Because intellectual understanding is not enough. True power arises when this knowledge descends from the mind and begins to be lived in the body, the heart, and in daily choices. The ancient initiates knew this. They did not just study symbols and words, they applied them in rituals, in movements, in practices that turned every cell into a vibrant field. Today, science shows us the same truth in different terms. When you repeat conscious patterns of intention and emotion, you literally rewire the neural connections in your brain and condition your body to live in a new state of being. Greg Braden calls this the weaving of reality. Joe Dispenza describes it as neuroplasticity in service of consciousness. Hermes had already anticipated it with his maxim, all is mind, the universe is mental. What once sounded like philosophy is now supported by laboratories, measurements, and data. But the question remains, how do you bring this into your daily life? Do not expect obvious answers. I will not tell you to simply meditate for 5 minutes or repeat phrases in the mirror. That is not the depth you are seeking. nor the reason you are here. What must be done is to create a state of conscious vigilance, where every ordinary action, every gesture, every thought becomes an opportunity to reinforce the harmonic pulse, nurture the seed image, and sustain the unison state. Imagine waking in the morning and before opening your eyes, feeling the invisible rhythm of the universe resonating in your heart. This is the harmonic pulse. Then imagine releasing into the field the seed image of what you wish to live, not as a distant dream, but as an already existing, inevitable reality. And as you rise, align your body, your words, and your choices coherently with that image. This is the unison state. Do this repeatedly, and over time you will notice something extraordinary. Reality begins to respond in subtle ways. New people appear, unexpected opportunities emerge, old barriers simply dissolve. Not as instant magic, but as the natural consequence of a coherent field. And to prove this is not theory, just look at the reports. In science, there are already experiments showing that groups of people in coherence can reduce violence levels in entire cities. In personal lives, thousands report spontaneous healings, financial transformations, improbable encounters that change destinies. They all describe the same pattern, a moment when they stopped living by chance and began to live in alignment. This is exactly what Hermes' hidden law always meant to reveal. You are not a passive observer of life. You are its conscious co-creator. But here lies the hard truth. Most will never accept this responsibility. It is easier to blame luck, fate, or circumstances than to accept that every frequency you emit shapes your own existence. If you are still here, still listening, it is because you are not part of the majority. You were called to this knowledge. You were called to cross the veil. And I must repeat, listening is not enough. You must practice every day, in every detail, until doubt gives way to certainty, and certainty gives way to living experience. Hermes said, "The lips of wisdom are closed, except to the ears of understanding." If you have made it this far, it means your ears have opened. From this moment forward, the choice is yours. Will you return to sleep, or will you begin to live awake as a conscious co-creator, applying the formula of triple alignment until your reality bends before you? The decision is in your hands. With every word you've heard in this video, you've been reminded of something that has always been within you, the power to choose the frequency you wish to vibrate, and, through it, shape the reality you live in. Hermes' hidden law is not a distant idea. It is a daily practice, the reclaiming of your role as a conscious co-creator. That's why I want you to leave a mantra in the comments that will seal this experience. I bend my reality through consciousness. Write it not as a casual phrase, but as a commitment. Share your experiences, your signs, your synchronicities, because your story may be the key that awakens someone else. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with those you feel need to hear this message. Together, we create a network of awakened consciousness, where each individual frequency becomes part of a greater collective transformation.